Okay, David. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And good afternoon to everybody out there that's watching. We'll give them a wee minute or two to get up and load it into the screen as per usual.
Need to change the view, David, because we're only getting one eyes on the screen at a time here.
Yeah, I know that. I think that's just the way it is when you're doing a presentation. I can switch the presentation off and get straight back into it, so that's not a problem. Do you want to do that?
No, it's all right. It's fine. We'll just carry on. No.
That would be the wrong one. Oh, bloody hell. Have we got anybody on yet?
I don't know. I've come off the other box and I can't find my way out. I can't find my way back here. I don't have a shrink option in our box.
Hang on, my phone's turned all the way down, so I should be able to go into YouTube and see if anybody's actually on. Yeah, there's an image of you. It's now going to me when I speak. So what it's doing is it's giving priority to the person speaking. That's all. So you speak now, and you'll see it clicking on to you.
Problem is, but I can't get back off our screen, David. I need to get back off our screen to be able to see the comments. Oh, hold on. Exit full screen is what I want. Right, that gives me the option now to shrink that box. And that should take me back to where I want to be. Right, good afternoon, folks, in the comments. Sorry about the technical difficulties. We're still grappling with this bloody thing. Right, good afternoon from Cornwall. Good afternoon, John. Good afternoon, Eddie. Afternoon. Glasses on. I don't know where to see the bloody things. So there's a few watchers. 11 down to 10 again. So Brian's arrived. Rev of Wrestling, Jim Campbell.
Good news. Yeah.
People just need to join as we go along. Anyway.
Okay.
Hey, good afternoon, folks. Now, the subject for today's discussion is debating the how you gonnies with unionists. All right. David's battled together a PowerPoint presentation, and we're just going to waffle our way through this as we normally do. We hope you'll find it entertaining. And we hope some Marys will join us. So, afternoon, Hugh. So what we've been, we've only been on for a minute, get a couple more minutes, and then we'll get off and running. See if anybody else wants to join us. Anybody that's watched this before will know we're pretty relaxed about the sort of things that we talk about, and we quite often go off on tangents. Right, David, let's get this presentation underway.
The reason for the presentation is very, very simple. It's like the amount of times I've gone online, either to Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and I see a unionist asking silly questions. What he said to me again, it's actually been phoned out. And what happens is I see people in the Yes family spending ages trying to get the best answer they possibly can put across to unionists. They're not bloody interested. They're not interested in what you're saying. They just want to waste your time and all the rest of it, right? We should be putting them on a back foot. We should be forming the questions that can be put to them. Because, well, as a yeser, as you see, you now occupy the high ground. But it's a unionist that have to defend the union. not the other way around. Okay.
That's a good point, David. This time we can't be in the back foot this time. You know, we have to, when they say to us, how are you going to do this? We have to reply, how are you going to do without our resources? How does anybody else do it? You know.
Yeah. So as you can see from the slide that popped up, you know this from the news now. The pound sterling is sinking right now. When Scotland becomes independent, much of what supports the failing pound will disappear as we in Scotland take back our resources. The massive Scottish natural resources are being used each day to support the pound. They use it like a bucket of assets in order to support the pound, keep it up. Scotland's resources will then be put to work to benefit our own people. We'll also have our own Scottish currency and central bank. So what do you think is going to happen to sterling? It's going to sink further. It's in a bad way at the moment, and I believe at that time it really is going to be in a very, very bad way. So the unionists are going to have to come up with an answer. What currency are they going to use? What currency is the RUK going to use if their own currency becomes junk currency? On to you, David.
It's already almost junk currency at the moment. It's got emerging nation status at the moment, and the UK's credit rating is single A. It's not even single A plus; it's single A, which is just a wee step away from being junk, actually. But Scotland will start as an independent country with a treble A plus credit rating because of our massive resources. And we know that for the last referendum, because although it wasn't widespread in the news, Standard & Poor's, which is one of the credit rating agencies that allocate credit ratings to states, meaning countries, they said that Scotland would start with a triple A plus credit rating. But we do have to turn their own, the unionists. When they ask what currency will you use, you see that question's been resolved. It's now Scottish Government policy to issue a new currency and create a central bank. How are you going to do that? Well, how did Serbia do it? How did Slovakia do it? How did all the newly emerging states in the Balkans do it? It's no rocket science. We'll just copy and paste the best banking regulations from around the world and pass a piece of legislation to create the bank.
And remember to finish up that with what currency is the RUK going to use?
Yes. Don't go into long explanations with them, with the unionists this time. And as David says, at the end of it, always ask, and what do you think is going to happen to sterling when Scotland removes its assets for supporting the pound sterling?
Yeah, remember the whole point about today isn't particularly to give you this argument. It's to make you think about asking the unionists questions. We can put them on a real back foot by being clever about asking questions. Now, apart from all this thing about currency or whatever, I can think of loads of questions that I need to ask of unionists about Westminster and what the Tory party are doing to Britain. You know, it's rather obvious when you think about it, but we always get tied up in this thing when somebody says, "Oh, what currency are you going to use?" Don't go there. You don't need to. Sorry, Dave. Please carry on.
See, we have to turn it on them this time and say, well, what benefit is Brexit Britain to us? A market of 65 million people isolated from the rest of the world, when we can leave you, rejoin the EU, be more in control of our laws, have complete control of our resources, and open up a market of 450 million to ourselves, and you'll still be selling to us and buying from us as well. So, your slides disappeared, David.
Yeah, it's all right, David. I've got it. It's okay.
Oh, you're just swapping them out. So, you know, we have to turn this on their heads.
So here's another question. What oil and gas are you going to use? Now, the supply of oil and gas is possible from elsewhere. if you're a country, you can buy who you like. The Indians are buying Russian oil and gas and all the rest of it, right? So fine. But where is the RUK going to get a supply that they also claim taxes on? Those taxes will go to Scotland, the Scottish Exchequer. The licenses, which are another matter, would also now be in Scottish territorial waters. And those licenses are simply permissions by Westminster, by which would be in a foreign state to allow the oil and gas producers to operate in Scotland. That's not on, because the oil and gas operators are in Scottish waters. Those licenses need to be run by the Scottish government. A negotiated deal may take place between the companies, the RUK government and the Scottish government to allow the licenses to continue until the end, with certain provisos put in place that benefit the people of Scotland, like lower cost of gas and oil. Most important, it's Scotland's oil. Never forget that, and the gas too. In the future, the aim is obviously to reduce the amount of hydrocarbons taken from the seabed due to the climate crisis. Much better under our control. Under the Tories, it's never going to happen. Okay, over to you, Dave.
Well, it's very simple. It comes down to this idea that they're talking about this hard border and trade problems. Well, you know, the trade problems between Scotland and RUK would be the same trade problems that RUK is having with Northern Ireland at the moment. You know, it's not insurmountable. Yep, we'll stay in the common travel area, so it's not going to be a problem for people. But there has to be a border for goods. And as I say, oil and gas, they'll buy it for us. The infrastructure's already there. You know, so all this crap, I mean, as I say, when it comes to, we really have to turn it on, the unionists this time. Last time they told us oil and gas was running out, but this time we turn it on its head and say, and where are you going to get your oil and gas? It's Scotland's oil and gas. Where are you going to get your oil and gas if you don't want to trade with us? All the things the heat before are actually aces up your sleeve this time. We're going to walk away and let your currency go junk. Where are you going to buy your electricity? Where are you going to buy your oil and gas? Where are you going to buy all that food that you require? The stuff that we overproduce. You know?
Another important one, Dave, is the statement by Rishi Sunak, where he stated quite categorically he was going to use the riches of the North Sea to help fund the Treasury. Now, how can you, on one hand, say that you're going to use the riches of the North Sea and then say it's running out? You can't. It's as simple as that. You cannot. So at the end of the day, it's like they're going to have to find a way of getting on our side to still have things like that supplied to them. Because at the end of the day, if we're an independent country, really, there's all sorts of routes I can actually see where we would actually do something about it if they refuse to comply. That is, I'm talking about the licenses. So anyway, I'll click it on to the next slide.
I'm just monitoring the comments here. Good morning, last brave or afternoon, sorry. I'll nearly run through the slides anyway, then we'll get into some of the crap that's going on down that road. But we do really have to turn it. Here we go. We've went through what oil and gas you're going to use to what electricity you're going to use. Remember, electricity gets 3.5 England gets 3.5 gigawatts of electricity every day or more. So they don't have the capacity to power their own grid. And Boris Johnson boasting about building one nuclear reactor a year is a lot of tosh. Absolute tosh. And the other thing about nuclear reactors is they're not cheap and they're no queen.
Yeah.
Whatever a reactor is, that lands out of commission for 300 years.
Yeah. Well, the reactors are thinking about it was 40 mini reactors produced by Rolls-Royce We'll see a bit about that in a minute. But
hold on a minute, David. A comment come in. Many of you lot up there act as if you will win the referendum next year, if you have one. I personally think that when OAPs and people with mortgages have their mortgages to pay, they will vote no. Listen, John, as I say, if you can convince people that it's safer to stay within the UK, then that's up to you. I've told you, campaigning is fair. You don't live here. You know very little of the circumstances here. Yet you seem to be making statements as if you're an authority. Wow. But as I say, you don't want us to leave. It's none of your business. You don't live here. You know, but you're welcome to contribute. He's not, listen, no troll stuff. Everybody from anywhere in the UK or worldwide are welcome to contribute. John doesn't think that people with pensions and people with mortgages will vote yes. Well, we just spoke about currency and central bank. I think they'll find that the Scottish currency, the new Scottish currency, will be a much better safe haven for their money than what's left of the pound when we uplift our assets and it no longer supports the pound sterling. But John, you know, you're very welcome to that opinion. Right, let's carry on.
Right. Sorry, right. So Scotland supplies a good proportion of energy to England. David actually covered. The mini reactors, which it's proposed that there's going to be 40 of, going to be produced by Rolls-Royce, who have a design already on the board, ready to go, waiting for the funding. And even looking to put some of those mini nuclear reactors into Scotland. They reckon they can produce all the energy that the UK needs from 40 mini nuclear reactors. We don't require nuclear for a start. That's point one, right? The UK, or sorry, the RUK are not going to have the energy online when they need it. They're going to be dragging energy from every place that they possibly can, but the connectors, the international connectors, are only yay big. They can't take any more through them without running more cables, right? And the UK, or sorry, England needs about 25 gig per day, 25 gigawatts per day. They generally get about 3, maybe 4 of Scotland. They maybe get a couple of gigawatts of France. Maybe get a gigawatt of Netherlands. That's it. There's your story. They've got one that goes from Norway, and at the moment that's running, I think, 1.5 gig. But still in all, it's not going to make up the pot that they need. They're going to require to come to Scotland for our electricity. They're going to need it. It's going to be absolutely, totally necessary. Even if they get their heads into producing renewables, putting up wind turbines everywhere, they were still talking like a few years of blooming rollout before they'll get anywhere near a fraction of what they need. So,
David, you just say that. Boris Johnson said this yesterday at Prime Minister's questions, right? They'll be building 1 nuclear reactor a year. They're going to build 40. There's 40 years before they're self-sufficient in fuel.
That's right.
And
that's right.
By the time they get to number 40, the number 1 would be decommissioned. So they're a shrinking grid again. Nuclear is definitely not a viable way forward. And where are they going to get the enriched uranium for these things and all?
Yeah, all right, okay. The other thing is that Scotland's producers would benefit by paying a much smaller charge to keep the Scottish grid in operation. At the moment, I'm sure many of you have seen where power suppliers, the generators, are having to pay to put electricity onto the grid. Whereas if you get down to the lower part of the Midlands, the producers are actually getting paid by the national grid to put power on, right?
Right.
Well, on our independence, that ends.
Hold on, David. I did say that we would be interruptions for the comments because we want to be guided by the comments. John Dunburgs, this has come back and again and said, I work as a London bus driver for TfL and pay my taxes, and I do live here. John, you obviously don't understand the evolution. We have a different tax system up here altogether. Yes, I live in London, which is in the UK, the same as Glasgow. I will be coming to Scotland next year to campaign for no. You're very welcome, John. You'll find that all this crap about us being racist is not true. It's Westminster we don't like. We don't like your politics. We don't like the way you doff your caps to your so-called betters so the class system still exists. You know, but you're very welcome to come and campaign to keep the union together. That's why we have these things. But it would appear that you're now admitting that there's going to be a referendum because you can't stop it. Because as I've already explained to you last week, John, you can't stop people from asking themselves a question. That's not just undemocratic, it's bloody madness. Right. Sorry, where were we?
So I was explaining about the feed-in charge that the power generator.
Oh yes, right. I hope the audience knows that the grid is no publicly owned. The grid's actually owned by 3 hedge funds. One in I think it's Dubai, one in Australia, and one in Indonesia. So we don't even own the national grid. So that's another thing that will need to be negotiated. But,
yeah, on a situation like this where a country becomes independent, that becomes front and centre of part of our national need. And what would probably happen is that we would actually look to take control pending negotiation. So get control first and then let them scuttle to the blooming table for a negotiation. So we'll take the whole lot off you for a fiver. How's with that? Anyway, so the Scottish producers would benefit because they're not having to pay a feed-in charge. If there was a charge, then it would be purely and simply to keep the Scottish grid in operation, which I don't really have that much difficulty with. That would result in smaller bills for electricity users in Scotland. I'm talking about companies and individual users. So I'll click it on to the next one. Next one coming up any second now if I can deal with a lag. Because there is a lag.
You think you're dealing with a lag? Guess what? I'm watching this on YouTube. I've got a lag. I can't even look at your picture when it's up there because you're way behind me.
Yeah.
But I'm more on the comments. By the way, John from England, we will win the referendum. Thanks, Johnson and his chums. You know, I've always said after I always thought it was part of the plan to break the UK up. I always think it's a way for the elite to hoard their money while the rest goes tits up.
Yeah. Right. So the next slide is, how will you export to Scotland? That's a cracking question to ask a unionist, right? We're told almost daily that we'd lose our biggest market, England, if we become independent. Going from the pages before this one, we're doubtful if that would be the case. You think about that. You know, if England are reliant on us for several things, and I did leave out certain slides at David's request that we'll cover in future shows, but the effective thing is that they're not going to cut us off. They're not going to say we're not trading from you. People buy from people. The government is just, they put in rules and businesses work round about those rules. They always have, they always will, right? So the next thing is, we in Scotland would erect border posts to control the movement of goods and people. That's a given. We'd secure our borders. Every independent country does that. You have to secure your borders. You've got to look after your assets, right? Next one is, our ports would be reopened for goods destined for Europe, either as part of EFTA or as a full member of the EU. Don't forget there might be a lag in getting back in the EU, so we might join EFTA temporarily to get us into the single market, right? That would save our companies thousands on each load by cutting out the time and the need to travel to ports in the south of England. Can you imagine being an exporter and you've got to get an articulated lorry, you've got to fuel it up, you've got to get a driver, you've got to pay the driver, right? Sometimes that driver's got to have a mate so they can actually swap over, right? So they can keep moving, right? And then you've got to join a 20-mile queue at Dover. Think about it, right? Okay. So what we are going to do is we're going to open up the ports, get the stuff away from Scottish ports to the Netherlands, to parts of Europe, wherever. And that means then that'll cut out immense costs, and also the costs involved with ruined consignments of fresh food going out to.
But there is more to that, David. There is also the employment it will create, which will generate taxes, and those taxes will flow into the Scottish coffers, therefore enhancing the wealth of our nation. Because right now, as you say, it all goes south to go across the sea, whereas we'll open marine ports, and that will create thousands of jobs.
Yeah, right. And that's just for starters. Scotland would open up a market many times bigger than that of England. In other words, if England don't want to play, well, we've got 27 others that are ready to play. And they already said they are, right? So don't worry about that. A word to the wise. None of the England blocking our exports or anything like that isn't going to happen. It couldn't happen because of what they need from us, right? Scotland and England will continue to trade in goods and services after independence because people buy from people, and we'd still have the social union after all. You know, don't forget, a lot of my business mates are English, right? You know, and every now and then we have a wee discussion. They'll say, "Well, what's this about a referendum in Scotland about independence?" I'll talk to them frankly about it, right? I'll be nice about it. Obviously, I don't. You know, I don't say anything. I never do because I'm not anti-English. Right?
No, listen, I mean, it's the same with John. John's entitled to his opinion, even if he didn't live in London. But I mean, he's fought back up again. Instead of going on about independence, let's sit around the table and campaign for Devo Max, which will be far more powers to Scotland. We are a 315-year-old union. I would be in tears if you left. You know what? We'd be in tears if we stayed, John. Yeah, as for Devo Max, we were promised that at the last referendum. We ended up with traffic signs, DVLA, DSA, and nothing else.
Oh, no. We got the power to regulate air guns.
Oh, and we also got the power to our elections and a referenda. Actually puts all this crap about we need your permission right out the window, because the Referenda Act's already been passed into law. And under the Smith Commission, elections were devolved to Scotland fully. Referendums and election.
Let me just have a wee quick extra point on that to John. Hi, John. How you doing?
I'm glad you see it, because John, we really want you to put the case for the union. Tell us what benefit that Scotland has by living amongst Brexit Britain. With a market of 65 million, seeing our economy contract like hell because we've lost 450 million customers, or do we go our own way and deal with 450 million customers and still have a wee bit of have trade with you? Let me explain this a wee bit, folks. When the Czech Republic and Slovakia had the Velvet Divorce, they were each other's biggest export and import market. But after the Velvet Divorce, 30 years on, the EU are both the Czech Republic and Slovakia's biggest market. So there you go. So all this stuff about we won't trade with you and things like that, John, you know, the social union will still be there. You'll still be welcome. You're also welcome to try and put the case for the union on the table. But to say it's 315 years old and that's a reason to stay in it, you obviously, John, don't watch what's going on in your own house of thieves and carpetbaggers down that road, where you've got a Prime Minister who's a criminal, who is shrinking your rights, who's stripping away your human rights through various acts of Parliament. And I've stated them in my videos today. I don't suppose you watched them, but I'll go through them for you. There's the Covert Human Sources Bill. There is the Police Crimes Courts and Sentencing Act. There is the Borders and Immigration Bill. And then you've got the new British Bill of Rights, all stripping away your rights, John. Right? It's becoming a totalitarian state where you've got a criminal prime minister who cannot be forced out of office, incidentally, who's actually centralising power in his office and in his ministers' offices through the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill and through the new British Bill of Rights. And you really think 315 years old day unions are reason to stick with that sort of totalitarian state? I really have to say, John, you really need to make your case for the union. Saying it's a 315-year-old union just doesn't cut it. And I'm sorry you would feel personally hurt if we got up and left. You've probably great experience with us Scottish people. We always have a great time with you. English people, you're pragmatic people. But democracy must be served, John. You're welcome to campaign against it. But and that's only if there's a Section 30 order signed. If you come up that road without a Section 30 order to interfere with a referendum, John, then it'll be a police matter because you'll have broken international law. Because if they don't give us a Section 30 order and we go ahead under international law, then if the state that we're trying to break free from actually interferes in our referendum in any form at all, it would be against the law. Just so you know that, John. But
right. David,
to tell us that 315 years union is a good reason to stay in the union and let's campaign for Devo Max. We've already had Devo Max. It was a lie.
Yeah, can I just add in here, David? The Devo Max thing, effectively, it's federalism. You know, if you create separate federal states, I can assure you that turkeys don't vote for Christmas.
No.
The people in Westminster and in the House of Lords do not want federalism. It just wouldn't happen. It couldn't happen, no matter how it was campaigned for.
What I would say to John Dunn Burgess is campaign for your own English Parliament.
Yeah.
You want us to sign this union in a federal situation? Well, you know, the English Parliament should have name more power than the rest of us. Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland should have a veto on everything that Westminster or England does.
Yeah.
That's a union, John. We're not in a union. That's why we're leaving.
Okay, right. So, a word to the wise, any form of blocking by England in terms of our exports just won't happen. All right. So, effectively, that's it. There you have it.
David, I'll just add a wee bit to that. The reason why it won't happen is even with minor trade barriers as between Northern Ireland and GB at the moment, even with minor trade barriers, it's much cheaper to get it for us because you don't have to sail it across the sea or fly it in from somewhere.
Yeah. Okay.
Simple as that.
Final slide. Okay, there you have it. Everyone in the Yes family should be asking questions of the unionists instead of them wasting our time asking pointless ones. You've seen that we've spent a bit of time on John answering his questions and all the rest of it. Fair enough. It's a live broadcast, whatever. But try.
It's important, David, I have to say this again. This is important that we monitor the comments. And John is very welcome here to state the case for the union. I'm a Democrat. Even though he doesn't live here and they won't have a say, as long as they sign a Section 30 order, it's cool.
But he doesn't make the case for the union. What he does is he's asking questions when we're responding. That's the whole point of today's broadcast.
Yes.
He's saying what we need to do now is start asking questions of the unionists, and instead of them wasting their time asking pointless ones.
Yeah,
don't forget.
John's questions are very welcome because John appears to actually like the idea of the union without actually understanding what it is.
Yeah.
Or how devolution works. The idea that John thinks he pays his tax in the UK and we pay our tax in the UK. We don't, John. We pay our income tax in Scotland. We have our own tax bands. We have our own tax system. You know, John is welcome, very welcome here. Don't call him a troll, folks.
No.
All contributions are very welcome here.
Right, so just to finish up, if you like today's programme, then don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell. Ding, ding, all right, on the Two Davies YouTube channel. We still need subscribers. We've got just about 700 and odd subscribers, We need another 300 to make the channel work for us. All right. This time,
and we don't need money, folks. Any money we raise will go to charity or will go to the campaign cost. You know?
This time, the foot is on the other foot, and we don't have to dig too hard to think up more questions to ask those who stand in support of the disunited kingdom. Each and every one of you should now adopt this method, whether in writing on social media or in person when speaking directly to somebody. Now, don't forget, also all these questions that you manage to think up, and I do want you to work on this, of thinking what questions to ask a unionist, right? It'll also help when you're just talking to somebody that's maybe swithering as to whether they're going to vote yes or no. I mean, to me, it should be a no-brainer, but don't forget, I'm a yes supporter. I'm part of the yes family. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, somebody somewhere that I'll meet up with, I'll go, oh, no, I hate that wee nippy. I don't like her. What's that going to do with anything? Buy the house, change the wallpaper, in other words, right? You shouldn't be going there, right? And that's what you should be telling them. Buy the house, then change the wallpaper.
Aye.
Yeah, if you want rid of wee nippy, then you'll have a democratic right to try and do so. But at the moment, she's riding kind of high.
And the same goes back to John, David. And I want to thank John again for his fine contributions like he did last week. And John, it's really good to have you here asking questions. It really is. And you'll learn a wee bit more about how we do things up here. You'll learn a bit more about devolution and things like that. So I want to thank you once again, like we did last week, John, for your contributions. They're very welcome. Now, David,
and other contributions.
and other contributions, of course. So, David, our 30 minutes are up. We've done our slideshow. So, I'm afraid we're out again. We're out of it, but that's fine. So, folks, thank you very much for joining us. And please hit the like button, press the bell notification icon, share the video across your social media platforms if you like the stuff. And of course, subscribe, and that way you'll get a notification each week when we go live. As I say, as we get further into the campaign, you will find that David and I will up our content output. And some of these bills that are going through Westminster and how they affect Scotland and things like that, we'll talk about these things as we progress as well. And I would like John to join us, because these things definitely will affect him and the people of England. Because after all, most of these bills, some of these bills don't affect Scotland. Like the police crimes, courts and sentencing bill down that road doesn't affect Scotland. Okay, so we'll talk about some of these things as we get further into the campaign as well. And we'll drag up the good points, the bad points, the things that are detrimental to our rights, and a PowerPoint presentation, and we'll present them to you as we go on and all. And hopefully that will help convince no voters that actually getting away from these nuts who are stripping away their human rights would be the right thing to do. Okie dokie.
Just one thing, the presentation that I put up last week, I've shared it as a video, which you're free to look at, right? But also this week's presentation, I'll do the same with, so that you can use it to peruse and maybe use if you want, you know.
David Hodgson, John's put a wee comment, and goodbye, but hopefully not goodbye forever. John, please drop back next week, please.
We're just here. We're not going to saw the countries apart and all go and disappear in different directions in the sea, John. Don't worry about it. We'll still be here, and you'll still be able to come and visit us. We can come and visit you. So don't worry about it.
Right, folks, thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you next Thursday. I'm going to end this here. David, you don't have to leave. Folks, catch you later. Wave, David.